Now I've been in Thailand for 18 plus years, which is a scary thing to say. It doesn't seem like that long, but it just, time just...
Mitch is 18 now, isn't he?
Yeah, Mitch 18, so I went to Thailand 2 years before that, so... So anyway, I'm getting old now. 50 years, I can say 50 years ago, my teenage son rolls his eyes and everybody starts looking at the floor. Uh-oh, here we go again. So Songkran's from Thailand, obviously. And we work with Wycliffe Thailand. So I don't know if you, I'll just give you a quick, for those who might not know. So SIL is like, that's the big Bible, they just specialise in Bible translation all around the world and have done for 40, 50, 60 years or something now. And years ago Wycliffe used to be the branch of SIL that supported the translation work. So there were two, it was the one organisation with two levels. But years ago they split off. And so now Wycliffe, to make it for, like if you live in Laos or Vietnam or any country, China, where you can't have missionaries. And so SIL was an established mission organisation. And so for Indigenous people to do Bible translation, they needed their own independent organisations that weren't attached to a Western organisation. So now all around the world you have like Wycliffe Malaysia, Wycliffe Thailand, Wycliffe Australia, Indonesia, and they often have different names. And they've done that for like political reasons to protect people. And so because Songkran's Thai, I'm technically not a member because I'm a Westerner, but Songkran's a full member, and then they have their own independent organisation, and they, because they're not a Western missionary organisation, they're able to do like evangelism and do all those sorts of things that you're not necessarily allowed to do as foreigners in some of these countries. And so Wycliffe Thailand, we can go to schools, and we go to schools and have ministries where all local Buddhist schools, and we can go and do evangelism and teach English and tell stories with Jesus and all those sorts of things. But for many other Westerners, they don't have a visa in Thailand. They're not allowed to do that as a part of their work. But we can do that for work. But Wycliffe Thailand is all made up of Thai people, but many of them are from hill tribe communities. So Hmong and Bisu and Lahu and Karen. So they're not ethnically Thai. So they live in Thailand, but they speak another language as their first language, and they speak Thai as their education language. But most of those people groups, that's where probably 80% of all the Christians in Thailand actually come from. The mountain people that live in the mountains, the minority groups. And so actual Thai, ethnic Thai people, and that's because they come from animistic background. So it's much easier for them when they hear about God and the gospel and becoming free from the power of evil spirits. It's a much easier step for an animist to become a Christian than a Buddhist to become a Christian. So there's many more obstacles for Buddhists to become Christians. And so statistically, after 150 years, 200 years of missionaries in Thailand, it's still ethnic Thai Christians. It's still like 0.01% Christianity in Thailand. So if you look statistically, they'll say 1% Christian, but that's including every There's about 70 different language groups in Thailand, and that's including every one of those people. And if you cut them out, there's not. So they say there's about 50 million, I don't know, 20, 30 million people that never heard the name of Jesus or something in Thailand. So even though there's been missionaries for a long time, in a sense the Buddhist world is probably the most unevangelised group of people in the world. And that's because they already have their own religion, they already have heaven and hell. I mean, it's different from ours. They already have a gospel message in the sense that you can be saved by doing good works. So as a Buddhist you can be saved. You don't necessarily have certainty, and it might take tens of thousands of years for you to go through the life cycles. So I'm not saying it's easy, but they do have all those same things. And so the Thai people were really evangelised by Sri Lankan Buddhists like 1,000 years ago. And so we've kind of worked more in that with Thai, ethnic Thai people. So Songkhan speaks Central Thai, but the northern part of Thailand where we live was never a part of Thailand until like the 1920s. And they speak a different dialect of Thai called Northern Thai or Kham Nulang. There's about 13 million speakers of that language. They mostly speak that at home. And so SIL's done a New Testament translation in that language. But that's Songkhan's language that she speaks at home as well. So we work doing Bible stories into Northern Thai because that's the language they all speak at home. So they don't read or write it. There's no newspapers, there's no alphabet, no standard script for Northern Thai, but there's like up to 13 million speakers. And so they're using spoken language. And so when you go to a Buddhist temple, and all the Buddhists, vast majority of people learn about Buddhism not through reading or writing, but they go and they listen, and it's all taught orally. So the monks have all the literate. They can read Northern Thai and Sanskrit and Bali and Thai. They're academic. They learn all the scriptures and all the commentaries, and they teach people orally. So that's the traditional system for passing on Buddhism. And so for us, we've been looking at how that works in their culture and then applying that to the Bible. So seeing how people learn, pass on information in their traditional way, and especially through Buddhism and how it's passed through, and then we try and understand how that works, and then we look at Scripture and we try to package Scripture in a similar way, and hoping that that's going to be much easier for people to understand. So that's kind of been what we've mostly done for our time in Thailand, but it's extremely difficult. Most of the initial opposition was from other missionaries and from organisations like SIL, because they've focused for 50 years on the written. So I used to work in literacy, teaching people to read and write so they could read the Bible in their own language. So it seemed like it wasn't a very safe or a very good method. But in the last probably 10, 15 years, there's been like a worldwide movement into, they call it orality. So using non-written methods to transmit the Bible. So all the biggest like YWAM, Campus Crusaders, Youth for Christ, Transworld Radio, SIL, Southern Baptist, like all the biggest mission organisations in the world, all now have training and teaching people how to do this kind of thing all around the world. So it's become a global...
So what you're doing, Scott, is translating the scripture into stories so that you can tell a story and they understand it as a story.
Yeah, so and like our goal is to do that for people that don't have Bibles. So with Wycliffe Thailand, there's lots of people groups that still have never had a Bible, and it might take 20 plus years. So the average time to translate a New Testament is 15 years. Many take up to 30 years. And so you have this long gap. And so there's all these people groups. And the people groups, they're not reading and writing. So their whole history has been learning through passing things down orally, all their farming, all their techniques, all their craft, all their songs, everything's. And so we want to get scripture into that tradition. So it's not just, it has to fit the culture as well as the language. And that can be different for different. So for some people groups, stories might be really transmitted, like dance might be the most powerful communication form of art. So then the stories would have to incorporate dance as a part of, to communicate fully. For a lot of cultures, say like in Vietnam, in the Mont Guards that used to fight with the Americans in the war, they have cymbals and drums. Yeah. And so when they learn to tell the stories, they will use the drums and the cymbals as a part of the storytelling, and that'll become incredibly powerful to that culture. And then you'll see cultural transformation. And so yeah, so that's kind of like we. Oops, I'm dropping my chocolate here. That's kind of the big picture. And now what's happening in there's so it's moved from just stories, and so like what normally happens with the stories, it's a whole narrative from the Bible. It's not just one little story here and there. It's actually from Genesis to Revelation, and it tells many. We normally it's like 50 stories to 100 stories that tell the whole story from Genesis to Revelation, and it has to, and the reason why Jesus had to come, and what it means to be saved, and what it means to have a church, are all taught. And so people groups all around the world have actually started churches, and churches are still running today with no written Bible, and they're able to do that. And the latest thing to kind of fill that gap is now that they can use technology with your phone, and because phones have very good recorders on them, and they have apps, and then they're able to translate the whole of the Bible without any being written at all, just using the app on your phone. And so a lot of these cultures that don't read and write, and they really want to listen to the Bible rather than reading it. And I was in, when I was in Papua New Guinea, I had really good friends that I used to help. They'd spent 30 years in a Highland language translating the New Testament, and they'd sold 8 copies in 30 years. And I mean, that was a high conflict area, but those people were motivated, and so they actually wrote a book in their language about how to learn how to drive a car, and they sold out in hours. They couldn't keep up demand. And so for those people, that was what's motivating them to read and write, was to get practical information, because they weren't really interested in spiritual things or gospel, like in Christianity. They weren't really motivated to read the Bible. So when lots of people become Christians, all that motivation will switch. And so now, like Wycliffe is just starting a project for an oral Bible. I think YWAM has something like 400 projects in languages around the world. They can't keep up with the demand. They can't get enough people to be consultants to check and help the process go along. So I think we'll do that as a... Do you want to say anything? Because I'm the gas bag in the family.
So you can start the PowerPoint and then we go through that.
So, yeah, I'll just, what's the time? How long? I don't want to bore you all silly. It's 11
You're not
o'clock
boring
now.
us.
What time do you finish? You finish at 11?
We finish now.
11:30, is that all right? Or-
Yeah, 11:30 is
Oh, is
fine.
it? Okay. Okay, we go. We'll
Yeah.
try 11:30. So that's us.
That's our son, Mitchell.
Just finished grade 12. So he went to an American international missionary school, so they do the whole, it's like you graduate from university when you graduate. It's a bit over the top anyway. That's him. He has to take all his graduation photos like 3 months before he graduates.
Oh,
So he has to graduate, I suppose.
You'll miss him.
I will miss him. I will
Yes.
miss him, yeah. So.
You'll be back more often.
yes.
I used to be a stockman in the Kimberleys in Cape York when I left school, so that's kind of why I wear
Yeah.
it's my cultural heritage. So.
That's your graduation.
Yeah, I don't. Anyway, who's got the clicker?
Oh yeah. Okay. Me.
You, okay. We go to Sonkan's church, and the last nearly 3 years, I started off as the concept I was going to use Bible stories to teach English in the church, and we had a Thai doctor and his Japanese wife who had just become Christians. He came along for a while, and then these expat guys from the church. So the guy on the left is Mike. He's an ex-Vietnam veteran, that electronic warfare expert, so military in the Navy. So like the radar and everything, those B-2 bombs in Iran or whatever, he's the guy that was making sure that equipment works. So and then he's retired in Thailand, and he lives with a Burmese family. And he looks after that family. They're Christians, and that's kind of like he has a little mini ministry. So all those Burmese, they come from a minority group up in the mountains, and his will go to those, and he's put them all through school and lives with that one family. So here's that little, in his retirement, that's what he does to serve God. So yes, his father was a preacher, and he just died a couple of weeks ago at 100 and something years old. And the guy in the middle, he's a PhD lecturer in philosophy at a Christian university that's retired. And he's then Tony's a French-Vietnamese speech therapist, and he grew up very tough part of France from like a criminal family, and he was dissatisfied with life. He had a beautiful wife, and he had money, and he had a flourishing practice with other doctors, and he decided that life was meaningless. He wanted to kill himself. So he went to Australia first, and then he went to Thailand, and he embezzled all the money from the practice. So he stole all the money from the doctor's practice, left his wife and kid behind, and he came to Thailand to commit suicide. And so he was going to party as hard as he could,
Blow all the money.
blow all the money, and then he was going to pop himself.
Wow.
That was his big plan. And one of the girls that he was kind of partying with or whatever was a Karen girl that had come from a Christian village and grown up in a Christian family. And when she saw the way he was living and what he was suffering from, she talked to him about the gospel and brought him to Christ. And so he had a very different conversion story. So he's been kind of exiled in Thailand because his former wife was a lawyer and her father was a judge. to go back to France would mean getting thrown in jail.
Yeah.
And so now, after all these years, he's kind of he's just come to. So I think next week he goes back to France. And he doesn't know what's going to happen when he goes back, but he's trusting God.
It's the consequences.
Yeah, so he's just trusting God when he goes back, but it's been a long journey for him. But yeah, he's a really... And so I've had a story group in their church with these guys for 3 years. And it's been and they've been really good. And I'm learning how to tell stories and craft stories and do things. And they're my critics. And so if it passes those guys, or then I feel safe that I can use it somewhere else. But anyway, it's for me it's been really good. And so I've gone through every book except for the Song of Solomon's, and I did. I went through the whole 400-year gap between Malachi and Christ using Maccabees and historical documents. So anyway, that was like a chance for me. Like storytelling is like painting or drawing. It's like an art form, and to get better and to know how to do it, you just have to keep practicing all the time, and you've got to keep doing more and more challenging and more difficult things. And so for me, I'm not a natural storyteller or anything, and so it's a chance for me to learn. But it's been amazing. Like I've been able to, all of us have really grown as friends, but we've also really grown in our Christian lives together. So anyway, so for me, that's been a big part of my life for the last few years. So we'll
Okay, next.
flick it through, try to go maybe a bit quicker. Yeah. Okay. When we did our goal for storytelling, when we did story sets in Central Thai and Northern Thai, but the goal was to make a foundation so that a Thai person could use those stories to become a missionary. So our goal was always to be there to empower Thai people to become missionaries. And that's much more difficult, mainly because of education levels are high, but the wealth for the church to support them is extremely difficult. The church tends to always just support their own activities, and to support somebody to go and do something like that's still not in the Thai mindset. So Thailand has the same number of Christians as like Singapore. Thailand have a total of about 30 missionaries sent from Thailand, Thai people. Singapore, with the same population of Christians, has over 300. So it just shows you like the difference. And so a guy on the top, Yon, he's Hmong.
Top right.
Top right, it's his wife and his 3 kids. And
His wife is the front.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think you'll work it out. And so he worked with us. He worked with us on our team for like 5 or 6 years. And he has a real passion for storytelling. And he really, really enjoyed it. And most of his family aren't Christians, and Hmong culture is a big problem when you become a Christian, because when your mum and dad die, you have to make offerings. And so they die and then they go into the spirit world. And in Hmong culture it's a path, and there's lots of bridges, and there's spirits that will deceive you, and there's all really bad things that will happen. And it's only the children making sacrifices and offerings to their parents is the way that their parents get guided through the spirit world. And they can't ever reach their final destination of peace in the spirit world unless their children make all these offerings. So when they become a Christian and stop making offerings, it's seen as a terrible, terrible thing. It's one of the worst things you can do, because now they've abandoned their ancestors to an uncertain life. So for him to be a Christian and to not do all those offerings is it's very offensive to his family, and everybody else in the village then looks down on you because you're not doing the right thing. So yeah, there's still a lot of difficulties. He is full time Yeah, just click the next picture. And so what I used to do and all the training and everything, he continued on. And now he's the expert. So I spent 5 or 6 years with him and we trained together and learned together. And now he's continuing what Songkhan and I used to do. And then now he's a full-time missionary to people groups in Laos. And so me as a Westerner, I can never go even into those communities without causing problems. I could have caused all the Christians to get arrested by just visiting them. And he's a tribal guy that fits in, and he can do all those things that no Westerner can ever do. Okay, so these are just, I'll just flick through. So these are the, so at the moment he's spent 2 years and there's with 10 Lao languages that have never had a Bible, and they're unreached people groups. They live in the remote areas of Laos, and they all come together, and the workshops are designed for group learning. And so they all come together, and when they have one problem in a language, and they can talk about it, and the other groups listen, and it helps them to understand how to fix problems in their language. And so he's been doing 10 languages, and in the previous years he's done 7 other languages. So now there's 17 language groups in Laos that have never had scriptures, that have got scriptures in a storytelling form. And because these people live way out in remote areas and they've never had education, they're extremely good storytellers and they have extremely good memory. So it's been very impactful in their communities. This is them back in their villages, and they're like consulting, checking. So when you do the Bible stories, you have to go back to the community, and non-Christians, normal everyday people are who you use to check to make sure your stories are communicating. And so you're actually doing evangelism just by testing your stories. And because there's, for these Lao people, there's like, Wycliffe has done one translation into a Katang language in Lao, but even having a physical Bible can get you arrested. It's a communist country, and people get jealous, and people have all sorts of things, and if they want to get the Christians in trouble, even having a physical Bible is enough in Laos to get you in trouble with the government. And so for these people, they can go to the community and tell stories, and it's not dangerous. So community people aren't scared that they're going to get arrested because they're listening to someone reading a Bible or using a Bible. And so it's a much safer entry level, where if you could take a Bible in there and start preaching, everybody in the community is all of a sudden afraid. If they're seen with you, they could end up in trouble too. And communist countries, they promote informants. So in every village there'll be people that just want to dob you in. And so you never know who those people are. And so yeah, we'll just flash through. It's a bit... Get the next one.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so yeah, these are just give you an idea of what it's like in a Lao village. Everything's kind of activity orientated. So when you're learning stories, you're not just sitting and listening, you're making things with your hands, you're drawing things, you create songs, you create pictures and use Play-Doh and sticks and stones and drama, dance. And so it's a very creative process. And so you're not just sitting down with we're not allowed to use any pen or any paper. When you come to the workshop, you never read a single word from the Bible. So you always have to listen to the Bible, not read it, because we need, for this to work, it has to be natural language. But everything in the Bible is written language. So written language and spoken language are very different, incredibly different. And so it's very hard for people who've grown up in the church using the Bible and reading the Bible. They don't understand how different it is. And so it takes a lot of, most of the time is spent making sure it's accurate. That's relatively easy because we can check it back against Greek or Hebrew. We can check this very good process, but for it to be natural, so that when a tribal person hears it sounds like somebody telling a story, that is incredibly difficult. It always tends to go to, sounds like somebody's reading something and not telling a story. When it becomes a natural story, they don't need to remember it. It's like if you go and watch a movie that you really enjoyed, you don't sit there thinking, oh, I've got to remember this, I've got to remember. No, you come back and 10 years later somebody can ask you about that movie and you can tell the whole narrative line or the plot and you've made no conscious effort to remember it. So you can remember stories that your grandparents told you and you weren't thinking, I've got to remember this story. But there's something about that story that stuck in your heart and you'll remember that for the rest of your life and you can retell it. And that's what we're trying to do with the Bible. And the advantage is the Bible, about 70% of the Bible is already in a storytelling form, but it's just in an ancient Hebrew storytelling form and we have to, but because it's already a story, then we can transition it into, if it's something like the epistles of, like the writings of Paul where he's writing a letter, that's a whole different process. You can do it, but it's much more difficult. So I'm going to get lost what I'm saying all the time. Just go back for a sec. And so what Jon has found is most of these language groups might only have 4 or 5 or 10 Christians. Some of them had only like 2 or 3 Christians. And the same thing what I talked about with Jon and they're all highly animistic people groups that all have to make offerings to the spirits every day. And so when people become Christians, they stop making the offerings. And so what happens in anything that happens in the village, that bad luck, someone gets sick, well, people only get sick, it's like, Papua New Guinea, people only get sick because something happened in the spirit world. And if somebody has an accident, it's always because somebody didn't, all these things are because you didn't make a sacrifice. You didn't do the right thing. And now the Christians aren't making the sacrifices. Every time something happens in that community, it's because this bloke over here, he didn't make the sacrifice. Now the spirits are upset and they're punishing us. And that's where all the persecution comes from. So it's not because of a religious, or they become a Christian and it's bad to become a Christian. No, because when they become a Christian, they stop doing the rituals and the sacrifices. And that makes the spirits angry and the spirits punish everybody in the village. And then the village actually drives these people out of the village. So some of the guys that you saw in those photos, one group, they were driven out of the village and they had to live in a police station for 6 months for their own protection. That's from their own family, their own cousins, their own everyone, just because they become Christians. Yeah. There's another one of those groups, they've been living in the forest for 2 years. Jon has videos that he shows where all the village people come out and they just dismantle the whole person's house. They take everything. And so then they just take the whole house and all their possessions, they take it off them. Then they went into their fields where the rice fields are, and then they took all their village, they have like a house in the rice fields that they use when they're farming, and they dismantled and stole all of that, and then they're driven off their land. So these stories have been really successful and people are becoming Christians and churches are growing. So some of these communities have gone from 3 or 4 Christians to 20 and 30 and 40 Christians. But the price is all those people are now being driven out of their houses. So it's a real conflict for him. I'm glad, like, in a way I'm glad, like, I'm not, what do you do? And so then he's there and they come to him, you know, and ask him, okay, what do we do? And to pray for him. And so he's seeing God do amazing things and breaking into their culture, but also he sees all the persecution and all the things that come with it. And so it is actually a really, if you get to a critical mass, if enough people become Christians, and then that persecution will drop away. And so, like, for him as a Hmong now, there's enough Hmong Christians that it's relatively safe. But when I was first in Thailand, if you built a church in a Hmong village, they would just burn it down. So that was 20 years ago. It was still... So yeah, anyway, so that's kind of... So we kind of went over to plant... That was like our vision, that we wanted to do something like that. But God's enabled that vision to come through, but not through us, but through Yon. So, like, for me, that's I kind of feel like, for me anyway, I kind of have a sense, okay, that was, God kind of gave me that vision, or that's why I went to Thailand, and so I see that fulfilment through Yon. So that makes me really excited.
She set up a foundation.
Yeah, and I set up, and God, that was God's plan, you know, like I had a vision for Lao people, but God enabled that. And so I've been lucky enough to see, you don't always see things like that. So we can pray a lot, and often for my church at Yak or you guys, if I see something like that come up, well, then I'll send a prayer request or something, because something needs prayer to get through. So there's a lot of spiritual opposition, people dying in workshops, and all crazy things just happen all the time. So just quick one thing, one of the Thai, this girl here, she's a Thai missionary from Wycliffe, Thailand, and she comes from the same church that we go to so we've known her all our life since she's been a little kid. And so now she's a full-time, she works with a minority group in Laos. She's a very gifted language learner, and she's worked with a tribal group there that another Thai Bible translator's done the translation. And now their church has really grown, and it's quite a success story. But she's a trained artist, fine artist. And one of the things that she loves doing is teaching people how to draw. And so I had the opportunity to, I'm not a trained artist or anything, but when I was in Papua New Guinea, I did many language groups, helped them to make stories in their own language and help them with drawing and the art. So I enjoyed that just for fun.
We used to see letters to home from Scott, and the written word was one thing, but the artwork was another thing. It told the real story.
Yeah, I'm a visual thinker. I think in pictures is how I think and how I understand things. I'm not a natural drawer or anything, but I've learned how to draw. So I had to learn. I had to learn. So
I'll always remember, Scott, one that you said, there was a Guinea girl had an eye on you, and you went up a tree, you climbed out to the end of the branch, and that's as far as you could go. She was still waiting.
She's got an axe.
she tried to cut a hole. She cut a hole through the wall of a house with an axe to try and get me.
Oh, wow.
I jumped out the window and went. A cow had running through the coffee garden, hiding in the bush.
It's a dog.
She was actually demon possessed. That was so.
Sorry,
She her demon possession got mixed up with some sexual things at the same time. So it got quite embarrassing. Anyway, it's a long story.
He was her last life husband.
Yeah. Reincarnated from the dead or something. I don't know who it got pretty.
Okay, next one.
So, anyway, so for me that's another thing that I've done at times, and I just did one recently, but it's really fun to meet people from all around the world. There's a Kenyan, this lady here's from Kenya. So she works with a minority group in Kenya, and so teaching her to draw, to help the people group draw in their own cultural way is what we want. So people from work in Muslim areas, these guys up here are all working from Malay minority groups in Malaysia and Muslim areas. And she's from a minority group in Myanmar. And encourage them to be able to just get the local people to draw all their own materials and in their own cultural way. So we're not trying to make beautiful pictures, but communicate meaning through pictures. So that for me, that's like really fun. I really enjoy that. And so occasionally I get to, so not this workshop, the one before, one of the ladies trained over 100 people in Papua New Guinea just a few months ago, so from all different language groups. So you can be living in Thailand, and yet Thailand's relatively cheap. So there's lots of international conferences and lots of workshops, and so people all can afford, they couldn't afford to travel to Australia and live in Australia for 2 weeks. So we have people like coming from Iran, from minority groups in all over Nepal and Bangladesh and all Myanmar and places, that they're all able to come into Thailand and then are able to train them. And so that's, it's a real advantage of living in Thailand, is that we have access to actually billions of people. So, okay, we'll go to the next one. And if anybody has any questions while I'm talking, just interrupt me. This is just
wrong year, last year.
last year. Anyway, this was, I just spoke at church at Yak the other day, but we just had big floods in Chiang Mai last year, so we spent a month of our life cleaning up after floods. So just flew. That's Chiang Mai city there. This is the street where, not where we lived, our house was fine, but her mum and sister and a lot of other friends all, that's how we had to get to the house for about a few weeks. But there's a lot of mud left behind. Alright, just flick through. That's Songkhan's mum there, top left hand corner. But the good thing is, like, people all come out and help. Lots of volunteers. So they were rescuing people and delivering aid on elephants. So probably wouldn't see that in Australia. But
No.
They can walk through the
rider.
the elephant can walk through water over its head and just stick its nose up and just keep walking. So.
They can walk through the very rushing water.
Anyway, like Wycliffe.
I know, I presume Chiang Mai is a big area, and we used to support missionaries with OMF, is it? Sunderland?
Southern State and
Also
Andrea.
Canada. So
Yeah, I know,
they're training students all the time. Have you
Right.
got any connection with them or know of them, or?
Yeah, so Jim and Linda, who they work with, are my cousins. So I just saw Jim yesterday. Drove it out of the bush. I went deer hunting with my brother, and I met Jim on the road, coming out of the bush. When they first, the guy I knew the guy that was the first missionary to the Lisu people. And he was an OMF. Songkhan's house is right. There's like
My mom's
Mum's house is like 50 metres from the OMF centre in Chiang Mai. So in the beginning, because I knew Ted really well, I used to go up and I helped when they were initially building the Fraser Centre with building materials and different things that they needed in Chiang Mai. But I haven't really had much other than going up and visiting Jim or Dave and Andrea.
That's another connection.
But yeah, I know Dave come from Melbourne. I knew him when he first came to Yak as a youth pastor at Yak. So yeah, we
You
have
don't
a
just stop supporting, say, to Change Australia.
Right.
And we take on some others.
Right,
Keep
yeah.
connection with them.
Yeah, so I kind of just keep in contact and know what's going on a little bit. So, Wycliffe, Thailand used to have meeting like a little apartment thing for years and years, but last year they,
Last 2 years.
whatever it was, they built a great big building. So anyway, whether that's good or bad, I don't know, but
They need more.
Songkhan's nephew, he's like 30 years old. He just had a stroke,
Ah,
severe
okay.
stroke a month ago. And so we've been trying to help. Like in Thailand, there's no social security kind of system, and so they do have a government. They have a government health scheme for like $30 baht, which would be like $30 or 40 or something, and then you can get free treatment. But of course, there's like millions of people on the 30 baht scheme, and you go into a hospital just full of people of every disease and thing you'd ever know, all just stuck in there. You don't necessarily get treated very quickly, but it's free. Anyway, he kind of finally didn't get a lot of treatment initially and different things, but before we came, we had to spend a lot of time cleaning up the house and making things ready for him to come home and be able to live in and stuff like that. But all the family members, everybody works 12-hour days, pretty standard for Thai, and most people work 6 days a week. And so it's very hard for family members to have time when someone gets sick or ill or something. It's almost impossible. So for us, we're much more flexible, so we've been able to help him and do things. Anyway, he's really improved a lot in the last week by the sounds, but if you ever hear talking about Leng or something, this is the guy that we're talking about. So I think that's my bit finished, is it? Oh, one more. Look, I come from a farming background. I was never a good farmer. Get that out there early on. I worked as a farm on other people's farms mostly. But I enjoy, so I have an organic, small-scale backyard. And I do a lot of experiments, and a lot of things you see on YouTube or read about. They look like good ideas. I'll try them in my backyard. And if there's something initially I was kind of more farmer focused. I work with an organisation as well that helps farmers. But the trend in the future will be that will be urban farming. It will be small scale. Most people will be living in cities in like 20, 30 years' time, and trying to find small scale systems for people to help them. It's not to grow all your own food, but it's just to help reduce some of the cost, or even in this day and age to have some healthy food that you know how it's grown and you know where it comes from, for your children and different things like that for health issues, medicinal plants. And so I've done that for years and years, and I have rabbits and I have chickens and fish, and I experiment with all different organic practices from Korea and Japan and from India and from Thailand and all around the world, and see if they're practical and affordable. So lots of things are good ideas and they work, but if you're a person that's living on the edge of, most people in these countries only really have enough for each day. They don't really have enough money for anything else, and so you've got to be really careful when it comes to food things, that you can turn something that looks like a good idea into a burden or create a problem very quickly. And so, I have two gardens. I have one like a food forest garden, and I have this one here is all drip irrigation, fertigation, timers. This one's like looking at high-tech solutions to increase productivity. Because those things aren't necessarily bad, but making all my own organic fertilisers, and I use all the rabbit manure and the chickens, and everything's like so complicated. But then there's groups that go to missionaries and tribal people, and there's an organisation, just flick through, I think it's the next one.
That's my niece.
Oh yeah, that's Songkhan's niece, and that's part of my garden. This organisation here that I help, they run courses to teach people how to do a lot of these things from all around, like tribal groups and minority groups and Western missionaries, and they can come to my place afterwards, and then I can give them like a field demonstration. Dig up holes in the dirt and show what it looks like after doing this for 8 years. This is what your soil looks like, and pull up plants and show them the roots and tell them the pitfalls and everything like that. So that's another thing that I've done for years and years, and a lot of it's just like for me to learn, but then to pass on. But the thing in Thai culture is that you don't go into people's houses. Traditionally in northern Thailand, every house would have had a walk up the steps, and there's like a little mini veranda, and that's as far as anybody ever goes into your house. You practice hospitality. It's not to invite someone to your house. You invite them to a restaurant, or you invite them somewhere else. So Thai people feel very uncomfortable to come inside your house. But if you have a garden, that's a whole different story. So for a lot of the relationships that I've built with everybody in our street and everybody, it's through the garden. They come and see me doing everything wrong, and they're like, oh, you don't do this. And they come and, oh, you need this plant, and they go get that plant and then give me plants, and then they show me how to grow that particular plant, and then they see things, and so often I can give a lot of excess food away, and that in Thai culture is a very affirming, it's like showing love. So sharing food in Thai culture is like, that's a lot of their love language inside their whole culture. And so God's really used that as a, I'll have guys who'll be fixing the bird nest power lines over there, they'll be looking into my garden. And they come over and like, oh, what's going on here? Oh, come inside, and you can give them the tour and give them some plants, and they ask you what you do, and you tell them you work for a Christian organisation, and so it's really been a huge blessing.
Okay.
We're going for time. Oh, I've used up nearly all the time. So.
Well, just to add, maybe you don't know me very well, but just this is the life where we are. The top one, that's where in front of our house. And normally, Scott will take Mitchell on the motorbike to school, 40k away. Anyway, this is just some activities that. Okay. At the corner, this bottom corner, that's my church.
Oh, lovely.
My mother is Chinese, but no one speaks Chinese anymore. Just Thai, but Chinese descendants. Yeah.
This is like inside our house. This is like the. Thai people normally just still sit on the floor and
You
eat.
just eat on.
Yep.
And eat, that's how they still eat food. So.
That's my mother. She's 78 and she has dementia.
Wow.
So she has to be full-time care.
Goodness.
She climb over the fence if she's home
She's
by
pretty fit.
herself. Yeah.
Gee.
That's the last few months. It's a big thing for our family. Mitchell's closing up and finishing off things at school, and also he was in the army, not full time, but just training. But he didn't like that so much, so it was a big thing for him to get it finished. And 2 years ago, we helped the organization, like the organization that they're trying to do animation to
Trans World Radio.
Transfer
Media.
Radio. So we help them do get the story set done. We had 20 stories, Bible stories, and we just help them how to make natural stories and help them choose the stories. And from that, they start doing the animation. So after 2 years of working on that animation, they're going to finish soon, and then they will put it on Facebook or social media, so Thai people can look at that. And
So it's like, yeah, they come to Thailand, all the colours used, the palette used for Buddhist art and all Buddhist art form, not just from Thailand, and they've tried to incorporate those in the animation. So their goal is, so they use Thai as the first thing, but then so we did all the stories in English and then translated them into Thai. And then, we did them in Thai, then they back translated them into English, sorry. So we did it all in Thai as naturally as we could, then back translated into English to try and keep some of the naturalness. And so I think Burmese, Cambodia, Vietnam, Chinese, Tibetan, maybe Mongolian, so 7 major Buddhist worldviews and languages have all been, this has been translated into all those languages, and it will be used as a, like these days there's a huge movement for what they call before they had like tracks, people did tracks and used literature, and then all of a sudden then they had like radio stations that are able to broadcast all around the world into different languages and different things, and the new kind of mass seeding of the gospel is through phones, and so they're using tools like AI, and Thailand has something like 50 million Facebook users.
one of the top
The
5.
highest.
One
But
of the highest.
People will, so this whole mission people, we work with a group of young guys that are all engineers and all, I don't know, they're brainiac kind of guys, but they all use algorithms and AI, and they work out, they make ads and different things, so when people are looking up things on the internet, and if they Google something to do with Christianity or anything, then they'll end up with an ad on their phone, depending on their search, and then that'll lead them into the ad's not like come and buy Jesus, no, but it's kind of like a flag that will interest them, that they can look at something else and just click on it, and then and so then they have all this content, but a lot of it was translated from English and it wasn't natural, and a lot of it was too short. And animation has the highest hits for Asian people when they want to look at a video or something. And so they're identifying all these things, and then so they identified that animated Bible stories would be the best tool, but they wanted to do it from scratch, all culturally, all naturally. And so we had that experience, and they contacted us, and so they have churches and pastors, and they have a team of like 30 or 40 people available online. So anybody that makes inquiries or wants to know more, they can do all these stories, and they can get understand the gospel through stories, but they can contact churches and pastors anywhere, and so they've formed like whole churches. There's places in Europe, they have like a church of 150 Thai people that all became Christians online, And so this is kind of the next generation of evangelism. We're old school, we don't know how to do that. But anyway, so like we're able to use what we've learnt over the years to help them, and they're doing all this stuff. We don't do that. So.
Scott, is there a simple way that we can log in and see some of these
Yeah,
stories?
yep.
Yeah, that's I can, if you wanna take a photo of that's the YouTube.
And there's
It's
English
on-
subtitles on
It's
some of them.
on YouTube. Yeah.
Oh, under the blue.
Go and take a picture
Two,
of the screen.
2 lines. You can
YouTube
go
and
into.
Vimeo.
Yeah.
And there's English subtitles on some of them, so. All right, sorry I interrupt, but
It's alright. I can send
yeah, I think they can take a photo, it's all
Oh,
right.
yeah.
It's in the families bit, isn't it, Scott? Like it's
So-
your mum and dad up at Carnarra, at the school,
Yeah.
the whole school.
I don't know.
They did the Bible in graphics on
Yeah.
big sheets, didn't they?
They did stories and
Stories on big sheets for the
Yeah.
Aboriginals.
Yeah.
Okay, so they could understand, it'd be all in graphics. Now, it was that good that I think a group from South Africa took it to the South African continent to use to the Indigenous in there too. So it's a situation that's been going on for a while, isn't it?
Yeah.
That type of thing, yeah.
lots of missionaries and people have been using a lot of these techniques for years, but they didn't have like a language or a
No.
category to understand, and so now they just call all those things orality.
Yeah.
People did it for years without really knowing.
Oh, we can send.
Oh, you can just send that to us.
Oh, sorry.
Anne can share it with
We've
you.
got it.
I'll share it.
Sorry.
That's all right.
And sometimes I would go out to lead some Bible story group. There's a group of ladies on the left that they're looking for a job, and so there's an organization that helping these women to look for a job or train them to get job. And they're not Christian, but anyway, we have Bible story time that I can go and do that. And then on the left, on the right, there's a staff at Wycliffe. Some of them are interested in stories, so they can come and learn stories and then go out and use stories in their ministries. And this is what I have done a lot of time in these past 2 years. Wycliffe want to use this curriculum for church engagement. It's a big thing about family problem, and we found that this is the practical way to help the church and the community. So there are 9 books of this, and I have been sitting in front of computer and doing translation into Thai, and
Wow.
it's almost done now. Just the last step of doing formatting and getting ready to print out. So it takes more than 2 years to do this.
That's fine.
It's quite an interesting background to it, a Bible translation team in a minority area in Myanmar and Burma. It's a conflict zone. They've been fighting, but a lot of for years and years to fight against the Burmese government, they sell amphetamines. So it's the biggest amphetamine production in the world. So in all these areas in Burma, you can buy amphetamines for a couple of cents. And so massive, everybody from small children, even pastors take amphetamines. There's no kind of biblical verses saying don't take amphetamines. They live under a lot of stress from conflict and war and poverty. And so amphetamines have become rampant. And that's what they saw
And
when they...
alcohol.
and when they're doing their translation, but it causes massive disruption to the families and lots of violence and all sorts of problems. And they identified that the Christians and the church and stuff, one thing is that they didn't have a strong understanding of family from a Christian perspective. Things like Buddhism doesn't have the same Christian values. It doesn't have like love as the foundation for families.
Yeah, parents will not say, "Oh, good job," or "nice," or they never say that to kids.
So it's common for a parent to never encourage the child, only to ever criticise them for the whole life. And this causes lots of problems. Anyway, so they were led by God and the Spirit and everything, and they developed this. And during COVID, had a tremendous impact. They had something like 30,000 people in Myanmar and tribal areas that all did this course, and it was transformational. It had a huge impact, and now there's and so a lot of the related Buddhist worldview cultures and so Songkhan's been doing it into Thai, and there's a deep need in the Thai church. Wycliffe Thailand does, they go to Thai churches all the time to talk about missions and what it means to be missions, and they've identified the same thing. There's lots of family problems, and so they want to bring this into the, it's one of those tools that can be, you can train trainers and trainers can train trainers, and it can get spread. But now there's, it's in something like 12 or 14 different languages, even in Africa. There's like a deep need inside communities to understand what it means to be a loving and caring family, and so it's been something like it's just really, there's a deep hunger and need inside. So Songkhan's been faithfully plugging away at the computer for a couple of years doing that. So.
And so this is the last one. As Scott said, that Wycliffe Thai will have the oral Bible translation for the first time, and we're going to do it in Isan dialect. That's very close next to Laos. Yes, thank you. See. Yeah, and there are 20 million speakers of Isan, and we hope this will be the great gateway to Laos people as well. So,
Yeah, it's not a written language, it only exists as a spoken
this,
language.
these two ladies at the bottom, they are the one who will be in this team, and I will have to travel to see them more often and help them whatever they need. Yeah.
So how long would that take?
I noticed.
To travel there,
To travel?
14 hours on a train,
On the bus.
on a train.
Yeah, wow.
How long will it take? Did you
Chiang Mai,
ask?
to
Oh, I
How
don't
long?
know yet.
how long does it take for this project?
Yeah.
Oh, well, we don't know.
No.
If
They-
everything went really smooth, it probably could take like 5 years, 2 to 5 years.
We
If
we
it's not
did
smooth,
we did a lot of survey trip to this area to ask them if they interested in this.
Yeah.
They're interested in the written Bible or in that audio
Yes.
form,
Yeah.
and most of them said we want to listen to it. We love.
99.9% said they
Yeah.
were, and then one pastor said no. And then his wife come back and said, he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Anyway, yeah, we're very excited because these people are quite strong Christians, but they because they don't like reading, they are mostly farmers, so they will have a chance to listen to that when they go out.
It's like the poorest area of Thailand, like economically. So.
And I've been going through the old photos as Mitchell's living home, so this is one of my favorite, and the favorite Bible verse for me too. Okay.
That was when we could tell him what to do. We can't tell him.
Well, yeah, we thank God that He knows that we are not strong, we're not a warrior, but He knows that we are trying hard, and the same as everyone here. Yeah. Okay, I think that's it. There might be something, but is that okay? Sorry, it's lunchtime.
That's all right.
Okay. You wanna close?
Yeah,
Sure.
thank you very much for coming. Maybe I could pray for you guys. Yeah,
And Lee?
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, most of us in this church are too old to go to the mission field, but we really feel a connection with you guys, and we pray for you regularly, and to meet you face to face. It's just lovely to see the work you're doing, and hear of all the interesting things that are going on. Yeah, I've got a brother who lives in Thailand.
Oh, do you? Oh.
Where?
He's retired over there as an expat and still getting his Australian pension, but he's not a believer, so how wonderful would it be if he came to faith in Thailand?
Through our nation.
Sorry?
Through our nation.
Yeah, that's right. So anyway, yeah. And I really loved hearing about Scott's garden because I'm sort of interested in that
Oh,
sort
yeah.
of, backyard gardening myself, and like the idea of being productive, and it sounds like you've been learning a lot of things over a lot of years, and yeah, it's just one of those.
My dad didn't say he's got a degree in agriculture, so.
Oh, but
I have a diploma in agriculture.
whereas I'm just a hack.
Everything they taught me at ag school is completely wrong, so